Hi. Yeah. Thanks for having me here today. I'm Shubhadeep. I work as a data science head of data science in Curvo.ai. I joined this company 2.5 months ago. When I joined this company, I have had about 19 years of experience behind me. I worked in everything backend, data science, machine learning, data engineering that most people are familiar with. I'm not going to go in depth of the whole thing that I did, but just to suffice to tell that I worked in mostly startups all of my life. So several times I saw things building from scratch. And that's one of the reason I guess I was hired in this team because it's a fairly small company. We just kind of finalizing ways and everything. We are just found the product market fit, so things are going to blow up from this point onward. So enough about my big background. I'm gonna focus on the application that I started to build when I was hired in Cabo. Basically, I drag a reference from what Michael was saying before, that we talk a lot about the technology and not what the technology is actually enabling us to do. And that's kind of my experience with Quix so far. When I started to look for a platform where I can implement this, I had already had quite a bit of experience with PySpark and Spark streaming. But I felt every time I used the Spark system, the database, the whole big things I used to use, I always felt like, my God, it's a lot of bells and whistles for what I'm trying to do. I mean, I don't want to understand all this technology. I don't need to go to all these minute details every time to do this. I just want to write the code, host it somewhere, and be sure that it will actually work. And I don't even remember how, very randomly, searching through webs, I came across Quix, and they had a trial plan. So I registered using my Cargo email ID, which actually created a little bit of friction afterwards, because I wanted to have my CEO have the ownership of the account. Michael had to get into and fix it manually and all this. But anyway, so I registered as a um, trial account, and I started building that application. So instead of telling all these things about the application verbally, I'm just gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna show you the pipeline that we have built. So this
Awesome.
pipeline that
Yeah.
you
I was going to say, like, I love that you like, yeah, we've talked before, and my background is in Spark as well, and using these sort of big platforms. Like, you know, I feel for those people who have to build it from scratch on AWS, for example. But
yeah.
I always thought it was quite overwhelming. And it's interesting when I introduce this technology to other people, they realize, you know, although it's quite general purpose because you can write any code and it will just run, it actually is extremely simple. Like the steps it takes to actually deploy something and see it running and to test it are much smaller than you would with a lot of the other platforms. So I always put that as a value proposition. Unfortunately, you have to have experienced the pain of like the other cloud providers to actually know this. So I love that you said that, and that's great validation for us. So thanks for saying that. But anyway, back to this pipeline. So what's happening
No, no
here?
problem. Actually, I start from this point that you just mentioned. The fact that you can write almost any kind of code and run it inside Quix. It's not only upstream processing pipeline, it's pretty versatile actually. So this pipeline that you see here, it has various different types of things actually, even in this pipeline as small as this one. So you see this webhook, it's actually a server that is open, that's just very simple REST server. I took the template code from Quix example and modified it to fit our use case. But basically, most of the code is coming from Quix template Flask OS server. And
Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, and it just receives, that's exactly what I said. That's why I introduced how the technology works from a broader point of view. So this one here is the responsible part where basically you receive the chunks of the transcript in real time. And then it fans it out to several different applications. Now, in future, what I also like about Quix is that in future, imagine I want to add 10 other applications here, all working on the same exact chunk of message, but doing very different things. I will just add more topics, and I will add another application in front of that topic. And that will do its job, and that will push to somewhere, some kind of a sync that I expect it to push. And it's extremely good in point of in software engineering. We always talk about separations of concerns. So this is one of the places where I found that the separation of concerns were really executed very well. It is a real separation of concern. I don't really need to worry about this code is going to mess up something here, or this code going to mess up something here. And again, coming back to the versatility, this is a webhook. This is a mock producer, which basically mocks some kind of transcript bypassing the webhook. So it is as if that conversation is happening and you have received it, and now you are fanning it out. That's why you see it also fans out to different applications. So when I want to test something and I don't want to run a meeting, I attach it to this one, I start this one, and it automatically fans out that demo conversation, and I can test my code. Now, then next comes the detection part. So we detect several things, as I said. We started with objection. So another thing very useful for me in Quix is that to have this log. So I don't care about having fancy log at this point of time. All I'm trying to do is to build fast and test things. And I just print, and it's almost I'm looking at my console. The prints are coming out perfectly fine. And I just simulated a meeting just before this call to show this data structure. So basically what we do is that we create a data structure, JSON data structure. And this data structure is just to detect this trigger, that we detect a trigger that there is something that is worth mentioning or worth noting in this very part of the
I see. So this could be an actual, so it could be an objection, I guess. So an objection, I guess, in the context of a sales call between two people would be someone is trying to sell on the benefits, and someone says, "Oh no, but I don't think that's a good benefit because X, Y, and Z." It picks that up as a trigger. That's an example.
Exactly.
Trigger, right?
So see here, for an example, I personally said it just to simulate. I personally that your system that is actually at the moment we are using has pretty high latency. So it picked up that there is something of an objection that is building up here, and then immediately as it picks it up, it pushes that to another agent, which basically does a lot more heavy lifting. So this one has to be optimized for latency, because you need to detect the objection as early as possible, or any other such triggers as early as possible while the conversation is building up. So the latency has to be the optimization factor here. However, here, once it is detected, it is kind of from several studies. Gong recently released a study about that. It is quite well formulated that the top performing sales reps usually take a little bit of step back when they hear any kind of trigger. It gives the other person the impression that they are heard, and also it gives the person a little bit of time to think about a good response to that question or that objection or that trigger. So in that case, keeping that in mind, this particular part, what it does is basically, this is the second part I was talking about. It goes to a huge knowledge base that we craft for our clients from all their previous transcript, their sales playbook, other documents, and we use that. We have different representations of that, like graph-based representation, vector store-based representation. So this one is a pretty complex code. It goes directly to a lot of different sources with this trigger that we have extracted, and then finally surfaces that to the sales rep. So basically, here the latency is slightly less of a factor. However, here the accuracy or the quality of the answer is much a bigger factor. So that's something that we do here, for example. That's one other thing that I absolutely love about Quix is that this ability to be able to manage my secrets, first of all, locally in my YAML file, and secondly, then doing it per per environment. So if we, as software professionals, I'm pretty sure we have heard about 12-factor apps and this kind of things before in our life. So one of the 12-factor apps thing is that you inject your credentials via environment variable, separate them out for each of the environment and all this. This is exactly the implementation of that particular rule from 12-factor app, and I really like it very much. And I use it extensively, as you can see. And you are right, June. We are working on a very sophisticated routing application that takes in several different parameters into account. Some logistical, such as token range, rate limit, and all this kind of thing. Some other quality-wise metric, like what is the best model to answer this kind of a query. So combining all this, it will start routing the response to the request to the right model. And so far, all our processes are basically generally IO bound. They are not compute bound. They are not memory bound. They are IO bound. So they are really the perfect use case for Quix. We don't need a lot of huge amount of compute or huge amount of memory. Most of our main heavy liftings are outsourced outside of Quix boundary. What we implement in Quix is the business logic, because LLM is just an enabler. It just enables you to do a few things better than you could have done before. But what you do with that enablement is basically up to you. And what we do with that enablement is in this pipeline.
Getting your business logic devised, designed, and deployed quick, right? We're getting to the end of our chat here, but I'm curious as well, because like you said, you joined the company about 2 months or so ago, and you've already built like quite a sophisticated pipeline or beginnings of really a business here. I was just curious, like because of your background in building these sort of products with teams, what kind of time saving has the Quix platform given you? And kind of like, because ordinarily you'll build up a team, like maybe a few data engineers, that kind of thing. So what's the saving here? Like how quickly have we allowed you to move?
Oh, it helped me to move extremely faster. At the beginning, as usual, like any platform, I had a little bit of learning curve. At the beginning, I stumbled a few times. So I'm very grateful to the Quix community in Slack. They are really helpful. So 2-3 times I had some issues, and I reached out to the Slack community, and almost like within a couple of hours I got my issues resolved. So I moved extremely fast once the initial learning phase was over. And now I have worked on it for like 2 months and a half, and it has become my second nature. Now I understand most of the platform pretty well. I know how to initiate a new application when I want to. I know how to use YAML variable, for an example, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, just wanted to shout out for the one last thing, that's YAML variable, and that's actually a lifesaver again. That helped me to segregate out the resources in my dev and prod environment. So basically, I have, as you can see, I have my CPU and memory for each of my applications separately defined for my dev and my prod. And that is thanks to the YAML variable feature that Quix has. I use them, as you can see, extensively in my Quix.yaml file. And yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for that. And shout out to Patrick, who heads up the Quix Cloud team, for shipping that. Like that was something that I think you asked for it, and we were able to ship that really quickly. So I'm glad you got to use that straight away.